Okay, so invasive species, Janice covered a lot of this already, but invasive species are any kind of plants or animals, wildlife, that come into an area that weren't there before, so they've been introduced. And they come through a variety of vectors. They can be introduced through waterways, through transportation, like Janice said, with construction, vehicles, or human interactions, anything like that. And they are a huge cause for concern because generally when they come into a new area, they are very strong competitors and very aggressive, and they don't have any natural predators, so they're able to easily establish in an area and basically propagate at a very quick rate and establish themselves as a new population fairly easily. So some examples that Janice has mentioned and that I'm sure you've all heard of: purple loosestrife, zebra mussels, gobies. Any of you who are anglers will know that it's illegal to possess a live goby. Emerald ash borer is another big one. The transportation of wood's been fairly controlled within recent years because of this. And also Phragmites. And I think one of the concerns with Phragmites is that not a lot of people realize that it's an invasive species. Like you mentioned, driving up and down the 401, you see it all along the ditches, all along the middle medians, and people don't realize that it's not supposed to be there. It looks like just another plant, just some more greenery adding to the landscape. And I think that's a huge issue, is that people don't realize it's not supposed to be there. They don't understand the consequences of having it there, the problems it's causing. And so that's why you do hear about people cutting it down, taking it home, planting it in their backyard ponds, keeping it, you know, by their fireplaces as decoration. I know someone I work with, actually, her mom has it spray painted in their living room, and every time she goes home she says, you know, Mom, you shouldn't have that there. That's a really bad thing to have. You can have a bunch of other plants, but people don't know, they don't realize that it's not supposed to be there. So we're going to skip through this. This is again another picture of Lindsay, and you can see that Phragmites can cause a huge problem. It grows incredibly tall. It creates these very, very dense monocultures. So it comes in, it kills everything else. I don't think Janice mentioned this, but actually in the roots of the Phragmites plant, it leaches out these toxic chemicals. So that's how it's able to outcompete other plants and kill all the other plants in the area. So it puts up these monocultures, which means it basically grows in these walls of just only Phragmites. You saw in Janice's data that there's a very, very low percentage of any other native vegetation. Once Phrag comes in, it takes over, and basically that's all that's left there. So this creates a decrease in biodiversity, so it's killing off all the other native vegetation, and it's also decreasing the habitat that's available for wildlife, so species at risk like the turtles Janice talked about. All of those things are getting pushed out because of these Phragmites stands that are coming up. There's changes in water cycling, nutrient cycling, and then actually an increase in fire hazards. So things like, because these stands go up, and like she mentioned earlier, it's a lot of dead biomass. This creates a huge increase in a risk of fire because you've just got these dead stalks standing there waiting to burn, basically. There are also some huge economic, social, and health impacts. I read an article recently about an indirect health concern whereby a Phrag stand had gone up in the States, and it was just at a really busy corner on a highway, and people couldn't see around the corner, and it was causing a lot of car accidents. So just all kinds of things, all kinds of problems are being caused by this plant, and that's, I guess, giving us the momentum we need to move forward with the control issues. So, as was mentioned before, native versus invasive Phragmites, identifying is really important. You don't want to go in and start spraying and burning a stand that's actually supposed to be there. And like Janice mentioned, it's not always easy, and sometimes you actually do need to go a little bit more in depth into the situation and look for some genetic analysis. So things to look for, height is a big one. Native Phragmites doesn't grow nearly as tall as the invasive species does. You'll get denser stands, so these monocultures I was talking about. Stem color, we mentioned that the stems of native species are usually a different color. Leaf color, as well as the seed heads or flower heads. So if you look closely at this picture that I borrowed from Cornell, I know it's a little difficult to see, where the red arrow is in the top left, you've got an invasive stand, and then in the bottom right with the green, you have a native stand. You can see there's a pretty distinct color change between the two. The stand, the invasive stand with the red arrow is a lot taller, a lot darker, as well as much denser than the native stand. Here are some more pictures from Janice's research. I know these are a bit difficult to see, but the picture on the left is some native Phragmites, and if you look closely, you can see there's a variety of other vegetation. It's not too dense an area, you can easily just kind of walk through that. Whereas on the right, you have a really, really thick invasive stand, and the only reason that that trail has been set out is because they've taken the Argo through. So if that trail wasn't there, it would basically just be a straight wall of invasive Phragmites. Here you can see the reddish-brown native stems on the left versus the tan, more kind of beige-colored invasive stems on the right. And then here you've got two different leaves. The top leaf is the invasive Phragmites leaf, and it's kind of got more of a blue-green color versus the native species, which is more of a yellow-green. And again, with the seed heads, I know that one that was brought in, it's got a pretty big seed head on it. That's likely an invasive Phragmites plant, and you can see on the bottom that the seed head for the invasive one with the red circle is a lot denser, a lot larger than the native one on top. So like Janice mentioned, the problem with Phragmites is that it's not just a regular plant, it's a perennial grass. So it creates this huge network of roots and rhizomes underground, and that's what you have to kill in order to get rid of the plant. And in this picture here, you've kind of got a coastal beach area, and you can see all the root bits that are coming out the side, and that's what you need to kill. And those are the things that create these runners called stolons, and they're able to shoot. We've seen them come up through concrete, we've seen them go across roads, and that's how this plant is able to spread and to increase its distribution and create new stands. So controlling Phragmites is a huge issue, and as you can tell from Janice's research, pesticides are one of the main things we'd like to be able to use to control Phragmites. Only this presents a few challenges. As many of you may know, on Canada Day of 2009, the Ministry of the Environment in Ontario passed a cosmetic pesticide ban, essentially saying that the use of pesticides in any context is going to be highly regulated by the Ministry of the Environment, and it will only be allowed in very, very certain contexts. So for management options, one thing that's important is if you do decide to use a pesticide, and you are allowed to do so, is to use an integrated management plan. Just going around and spraying the Phrag isn't going to give you the results you want to see. You need to use a combination of measures, so something like Janice had mentioned, like using the spray and then rolling or cutting and then burning. So you need to use a combination of different measures in order to adequately control these populations.